feedback has one purpose and one purpose alone, Dave, and that is to get somebody to peak performance. It's not a corrective measure. You don't want to grow somebody. That already implies you know something they don't know. You're trying for them to be at peak performance. They are being the best you can be. Remember what we said. Don't take people the way they are, take people the way they can be. See their potential. You're wanting them to do an amazing job next time they do it. Like some of you said, beautiful. That's what feedback does. And that's the idea of feedback. Now it gets interesting. Studies show, and they're not the Galilee. Studies show, if you give somebody personality strength-oriented feedback, personality strengths, you have an increase in performance for 22.3%. You can look this up in the net. You guys are millennial when you will. Okay? This is not a Gallup study. You give somebody performance weakness-oriented feedback, which is the criticism we talked about, you have a decrease in performance by 10.9%. So purely going with the classic, looking at weaknesses thing, decreases performance by 11%. I think that's what the Austrian coaches have done with the Austrian football team for the last 20 years. Yeah? Love our football team. I wish we would win sometime. Yeah? Now, that's the thing, right? That's when it gets interesting. But that's where the, cat bites itself in the tail. You need to know other people's strengths in order to do it. Understandable? Great. And that's where it comes in. So when you're working in project teams, which you will, know each other's strengths. Because not only is it helpful if I know that, let's say it doesn't matter, Paul, Joe, or Elizabeth are analytical, they have a desire and a yearning to look at Excel spreadsheets. They have glimpses of excellence while they do it. They have rapid learning involved. They get into a flow state. They're satisfied doing it, and if you say, why are you so good at it? They go, no, anybody's good at that. Come on, it's not hard. But they have a desire to do it, huh? So team up with people like that have very different strengths than you, because the synergy is amazing. Giving somebody else feedback is so important. Another fascinating thing is looking at feedback from a pure, what we used to teach in the 80s and 90s perspective. We used to say, now you listen, you, as a manager or as a colleague, you need to address performance strengths. Performance strengths. Remember when I used Jovana about an hour ago? I said, Jovana, you're really good at filling out Excel spreadsheets. And what was the reaction? I know. Because that's a performance strength. Now the science shows us that addressing performance strengths from an increase and decrease in performance, that's nothing. So the classic, good job. It's better than a hole in the head, but other than that, for sure, right? But other than that, it does nothing. So now if I said, theoretically speaking, Johanna, the fact that you're so diligent, you're so hardworking, you're very detail-oriented and responsible for what you do, and that's why your Excel spreadsheets never have any mistakes, science says increases her performance by 22.3%. Now it gets interesting, but now I need to know the strengths of my people. And I need to get over my cultural programming and the myth around feedback where it's a corrective measure, where I need to give feedback in a way of, I'm right, which automatically means, Jovana, you are wrong. And that means you need to improve. Change. That's, by the way, what they call a marriage. And that's how most people, sorry for that, and that's how most people give feedback. That's how most people give feedback. It's a corrective measure. So now you're top performers in the organization. Somebody giving you feedback like that, weakness-oriented, all right? Performance weakness-oriented, and with a notion of, I'm right, you're wrong, now change. How are you going to react as top performers in the organization? What is your automatic reaction going to be? Pete?
Resistance.
Exactly. Come on. The detail orientation slows us down so bad. I mean, come on. We never get anything done. Stop with the number crunching, right? Instead of saying that, you could say, hey, sometimes, brother, what I notice is self-assurance in the basement. That's what they call it in the basement. Between the other side. For the next project, we need to be mindful of that because it could be your polarized team sometimes. Yeah? He goes, yeah, that's really good to know. right? Or sometimes I noticed, you know, your analytical is in the basement, which means you slow the process down a lot. Analytical is great, but in the basement, we're getting very slow. We need to speed up a bit because we're an innovative, agile organization. For next one, we're cool. She goes, okay.
But I'm not going to leave you.
I know, it's an example. Because it's a language she understands. Now, the beautiful thing is you need to know your people. And like Johanna just said, if I'm using the wrong strengths with people, it has the opposite effect of, but that's not me. You guys have me? So using strength-based language in feedback is genius. And alleviates all the intercultural things that we mentioned. Giving good advice, which a lot of people do in feedback. You know, my suggestion to you is, my proposal to you is, what do I think you should do in the future? Study shows giving advice has an increase in performance by 1.2%. That's next to zero. So the classic advice bit that a lot of people throw out there, not the best. Funny thing is, there's so many feedback methods out there which are not necessary. If you start taking people in the way of, I want you to be at peak performance, and you use strengths as a language, there's no reason. You can't use it if you want. You know, use the feedback for all I care or any other method, but it's actually not necessary. Strengths is a really good language for this. We need to be a bit mindful with feedback. Yeah? It is one of the most underrated, misused management tools in the world. Add too much to feedback.